Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for One Piece Season 3 on Netflix. And I really enjoyed this season. It was 14 episodes, but holy shit, this was a good one of the introduction of the Straw Hat of Tony Chopper. And holy shit, like, I had seen the character of Chopper, the little blue-nosed reindeer, but I really loved learning the story behind him and him becoming one of my favorite characters in One Piece. Granted, it's just like a take on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, except he's got a blue nose and he ate the human fruit and can talk like a human and has different kind of forms and everything. And man, that his introduction and how he kind of got there worked very well. I really enjoyed this arc and felt that it was nice and honed to where we didn't really have that much kind of filler. But we see that, like, they had focused on Nami having this weird kind of bite mark on her, and we find out that she's sick, and they're trying to find an island and have to deal with the whole kind of ramifications. Vivi needs to get to Alabasta to deal with the whole kind of Civil War situation. However, Nami is their navigator and is pretty much potentially dying. Seeing Luffy kind of freak out and be like, she's gonna die, and he doesn't know how to handle that kind of situation. Now, I'm fine with this in that hopefully Luffy at some point learns how to handle this a little bit better. Because I have also gone forward, and it's just like, Luffy, you need to learn how to fucking conserve food and water. Holy Jesus. But it's like, okay, he wants to help his friends, and even though he doesn't know how to do that at this point, they have to try and figure it out. So Vivi makes the decision, alright, we're gonna need to get to Alabasta. The only way to do that is to find a doctor to heal Nami. So they pretty much are trying to go there, but then they are intercepted by this fucking asshole Wapol. This, like, dude who's got the munch fruit power, and he starts eating the ship, and Luffy's like, fuck you, buddy, and fucking launches him. And the other crew that they kind of fought a little bit's like, we gotta go save him because he ate the devil fruit and he's pretty much gonna drown. It's like, yeah, you better handle that. So they eventually get to this next island, which is Drum Island, and is pretty much winter all year round. Vivi pretty much gives us the kind of lowdown of like, hey, there are spring, summer, fall, and winter islands, and they even themselves have seasons and all that. And they get to that island, and they are set upon by the inhabitants who are like, screw pirates. And there's a pretty tense standoff. They try and talk at first, but Vivi does get shot, and she's like, I'm sorry, we need help for our friend. Because Luffy's pretty much getting ready to bang out and fight these guys, which I kind of understand, but it's like, there's a better diplomatic situation to kind of deal with this, and he eventually follows Vivi's lead and asks for help, and their leader Dalton kind of acquiesces and like, okay, cool, and brings him up. Then we get the lowdown that this place used to be ruled by the monarch, actually Wapol, until Blackbeard popped up and fucking wrecked their shit, and they fucking ran away. The fucking monarch who's like, oh yeah, and we learned that he had like a tyrannical rule. This used to be a vast bed for like medical research. They had a lot of doctors and everything, but he got into the bright idea of like, oh yeah, I want the people to follow everything that I do, so I'm gonna get rid of pretty much almost all the doctors, get these 20 MDs like for just him, and then if anybody wants medical care, they have to fucking beg me for it. And it's like, that doesn't sound familiar at all. It's like, now granted, this was made long ago, but like, it's just like, wow, you are a stupid bastard. You shouldn't be in charge of anything. Fuck you, dude. Because you see people sick and everything like that, and they've got, like, no hope. And we learned that there's barely any other people because Wapol took his doctors with him. And they're trying to figure out kind of how to go about this. We hear that there's going to be an election, that Dalton would probably be the one to be probably like the front runner for that kind of thing. And we learned that he actually was the captain of the guard for Wapol, but he got fed up with him and pretty much was like, fuck you, man. Before, we didn't really get a whole kind of thing for like the whole Blackbeard situation. That's the only kind of criticism that I'll get to, because it did seem like Dalton could potentially have led a rebellion with like some of the other kind of like loose, weird doctors that were around, and instead that popped off, and then just like woof. Now, granted, Blackbeard becomes important later on as we learn at the end of this season that this dude Ace is like, hey, tell Luffy that I'm going to be in Alabasta for 10 days. I'm looking for this Blackbeard dude. And we get that information later on in the next season. I always have to be careful because if I ever go forward in something, I don't want bleed over to come into effect. But we'll get there eventually. So, we have that whole doctor situation, which of course leads us to a present situation that Nami needs a doctor, and the only doctor that they have is Dr. Correa, who's considered a witch, who looks like comes down, kind of like Santa Claus, doing all this stuff. But we see her introduced. She like goes to this village, saves this one kid, performs this procedure, but she's like, I want half your shit. And she's like 139 years, but if you call her an old lady, she will fucking bust your ass. It's like, okay, I like you. She's a little bit more combative than I like. No, granted, that's just like personally, but she's a very interesting character, and I like her character. And then we're seeing Chopper's like, what the fuck's going on with that? We get into that later on in the season, but we see that Luffy and Sanji decide to take Nami up because she's evidently living in this castle, which was Wapple's, and they stupidly go. Luffy's like, fuck those bunny things. They're like carnivorous bunnies, but they're like giant bear, polar bear kind of things, and that whole situation where they accidentally, well, the bunnies cause the avalanche to pretty much kill their asses, but it like fucks them over too, and fucks over the people as Wapple pops up. It's like, I'm gonna take this island back over. You got your ass beat by a motherfucking pirate, and then you went up, oh, bird. It's like, oh, again. It's like, guess what, buddy? That means your ass can be beat. I mean, granted, you've got a devil fruit power, but you just seem to eat weird shit and not really do much. Luffy really fucks his ass over towards the end of this thing where he just fucking like thunder punches him again. Granted, he does do some kind of stuff making himself thinner, trying to utilize other kind of things. He fused two of his people together. It's like, what the shit? That didn't help much, except just to have Chopper to be like, I'm gonna kick your ass. Now, granted, he doesn't have that kind of level of confidence yet, but I do want to see more of him, like, get into his own. Let's see here. So, Luffy's whole thing, he finally, Sanji gets injured, and he's climbing to the top of the mountain, and that's a big trek, and he's doing it barehanded, climbing this mountain, and it's nuts. He's pretty much almost frostbitten before Correa, pretty much. We see that Vivi and Usopp tried to kind of get to her, and they just kind of like putter around. Zoro accidentally gets, he's left with Kaoru to pretty much watch over the boat, but then he starts training, runs into Correa accidentally, and he calls her an old lady and gets fucking cracked up. They're trying to like chase her around, but then she gets back up top to her castle at the same time that pretty much Luffy, Sanji, and Nami do, and we see that like she takes care of them, and that she's like, yeah, your friends are safe, I'll take care of them, and that Nami would have died pretty closely if they didn't get there in time. So it's like, good job, Luffy, on doing that. Before she then starts telling us about Chopper, and it's like the saddest fucking thing. And like, the reindeer didn't like him for his blue nose and were ostracizing him, and then he eats the human fruit, and they just beat him out. The humans think of him as a yeti and a monster, and they're shooting at him and everything, and it's just like, no, you're okay, man. I'm like, you assholes, fuck this shit. He isn't doing anything. He isn't hurting anybody. He just wants to... He wants someplace, man. That's all anybody wants. And then he runs into one of the other doctors. Let me see here. Nope. And while this is going on, the avalanche fucked over a lot of people. Wapple pretty much almost killed Dalton with one of his people, and everybody pretty much got, like, buried in an avalanche. Hurlock. Like, back in the day, we had Correa and Hurlock pretty much, like, running around. Hurlock was pretty like, kind of crazier doctor, and that people were like, please don't help me, sweet Jesus, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. And he then sees that Chopper is injured. And then the thing is, he had like his trank gun out, and Chopper thought he was going to shoot him and starts fighting him, but he's like, no, I'm not here to hurt you. And then he takes care of Chopper and helps him and teaches him stuff about medicine, and it's like, hey, looks like hopefully we'll get a doctor on the boat, because you need a doctor on the boat. And we see that Herlock is trying all these things to bring cherry blossoms to Drum Island, and Correa thinks it's a crazy kind of dream and that he's not going to be able to do it, and all of his experiments are kind of failing and everything, but he's helping out Chopper. He names him Tony Chopper, and them just living together, it's like, oh, you get it. And Correa's like, well, this doesn't really have a happy ending. And we learned that like Herlock used to be like a master thief and everything. He was dying, but then he saw these cherry blossoms and it helped him, it healed him, and he wants to heal the sickness of the people in Drum Island because of the shit that Wapol was doing and how much of a fool he is, and he's trying to heal them by showing them cherry blossoms. And it's like, damn, like, a lot of this shit was moving to me here. It's like, I get this, I understand you wanting to do this and to change their mindsets and to help this people and to heal this country, because we learned that he waves a pirate flag because he believes that no disease cannot be cured. Like, there's got to be something, and that even like bigger things can be cured as well, and this greatly affects Chopper as well, and he views him as his son. But then we learned that he's dying as well. He tries to pretty much shoot at Chopper to get him to go away, but Chopper learns that he's dying as well. He's got like 10 days, and Chopper goes on this journey to find this mushroom that he read in this book, and he does, and he gives it to Herlock. But the thing is, we learned that Chopper still doesn't have the complete understanding and capabilities of what he's reading, because he saw this mushroom and it's like the most poisonous possible. And the thing is, Wapol tried to do this thing to get the rest of the doctors, saying that like all of the doctors under his care were sick, and Herlock goes up there to heal them and learns that it's a trick, but he says thank goodness that nobody's sick or anything, and he decides to go out like himself. He knows that he's dying, and the thing is, Correa berates Chopper, being like, you gave him poison. And the thing is, he didn't know it. Again, intent really matters. You could be like, he should have known better. It's like, yeah, but the thing is, you should be helping him read and understand of what's going to go on. And the thing is, Herlock had also, at this point, succeeded in having one of his experiments succeed, and gave these powder to Correa. You're like, huh, we'll have to see how that kind of works out. And we see that Chopper's trying to get up there, but then Herlock pretty much blows himself up in talking about how a person doesn't die until they're forgotten, and that it wasn't the sickness that killed me, it wasn't the mushrooms that killed me, it isn't this bomb that's pretty much going to kill me. And you see that it really affects Dalton, and him being like, no, we're not going to let... He's like, no, it inspires him as well. It's like, damn. And then, of course, Chopper's got up there in his pretty much kind of like humanoid kind of form, and Dalton transforms with his devil fruit power to kind of like stop him, and he's crying as well, and that affects Chopper. He's like, listen, no, don't do this. It's okay, just leave. And he kind of talks down Chopper, and then Chopper works with Correa to be her assistant. And it's like, holy shit. And we see Chopper kind of dealing with the Straw Hats. We see that, like, instead of hiding like you'd normally hide, like, oh god, he's like this, where he's like hanging on to it. It's like, oh, he doesn't know how to hide. And the thing is, he does need to hide, because Sanji and Luffy immediately are like, venison, let's eat this motherfucker, meat. And I'm like, oh god. Now he's like, stop this. And so they're pretty much chasing around all that, but then they kind of learn that Chopper's cool, and even though Luffy kind of calls him a monster and a freak, he's like, I want him to be my friend. And that's one of the good things about Luffy. Granted, he is really bad at supply management, but he is a strong heart of being like, I want to be his friend. And I'm like, yeah, I'd want to be his friend too. And we see that he cares for animals, because the castle's been open to the elements because of these snowbirds, because they made a nest on top of the door. And they're kind of running around before Wapol and the rest of his dudes pop up to pretty much try and get back into his castle. And Chopper's like, screw you. And we see him utilizing his human fruit, where he's got all these forms. He uses this rollerball a Rumble Ball, in order to expand the amount of forms that he has. They also dig out Dalton, have him patched up a little bit by the 20 MDs as they go up to deal with Wobble, because Dalton's like, I'm not letting this happen anymore. Fuck that guy. And the thing is, Luffy is pissed off at him because he was trying to destroy Herlock's flag and take it down. He's like, I'm not fucking doing that. I'm not letting you do that. And that affects Chopper because that's his thing. He's the son of these two people, of Correa and Herlock, and that flag is really important to Herlock. And she's like, yeah, and it keeps getting Chopper more on his side. As we see Chopper fuck up the amalgamation thing. Luffy, of course, was enthralled by his transformations, and Wapol was trying to get into this armory thing, but Nami, of course, stole the armory key, which she utilizes later on to negotiate with Correa to pretty much get out of leaving the town earlier. Now, granted, Chopper goes with them, so they've got a doctor enough to deal with any kind of medical complications that would rise up. Let's see here. And then we see that Chopper has made up his mind, and of course, Correa does a similar kind of thing to Herlock of being like, saying goodbye by pretty much throwing shit and trying to attack his ass, but he leaves with the sleigh and everything, taking the Straw Hats back down as she starts setting up these cannons and utilizing the powder that Herlock had made to create cherry blossoms by turning the snow the shade of pink that cherry blossoms were, and also making the mountain kind of look like a giant cherry blossom tree. And it was just beautiful. It was really cool. I'm like, okay, how are they going to do this? And it was just cool to see Chopper be happy that Herlock was able to do this and Correa was saying goodbye that way. It just worked very well for this story that we got of these three characters, as Herlock had also said that Chopper needs to go out there and see the world someday, and he picked a very interesting crew to go along and do that with, as he's got his backpack of everything, learning how to kind of handle the crew and all that, and how parting from a home like this, even though it has been a weird home for him of mostly bad kind of memories and bad things that have happened to him, he has had good with Herlock and Correa. And then seeing the Straw Hats excited and everything, and Luffy being like, yeah, we got a friend and a doctor. And it was just nice as they then set off for the next round for Alabasta Kingdom. And I liked this one because there was a little bit of faffing about of okay, Luffy getting up to the whole kind of mountain, dealing with the bunnies and all that, but he then helped one of the bunnies out of the avalanche, which was cool. But no, it was very streamlined and did a very good job of introducing Chopper, getting me to understand who he is, his motivations, why he is distrustful of humans, and how Correa had pretty much asked if Nami and her crew would be able to heal the scars on his heart from what he's done, and then seeing Luffy being able to kind of do that and be like, no, I understand what this pirate flag means. I might not know exactly what it means for that person of cherry blossoms and healing and disease and all that, but it is up here for a reason, and it means something to you, Chopper, and I'm not going to let this fucking asshole do that shit. And that then gets Chopper to understanding him more and going with them, and it's going to be cool to see more of his dynamic as it comes into play, as I'm like, wow, okay, I like a lot of different kind of aspects of certain characters, like Luffy's heart and actually trying to help and protect people, but he's got very big downsides of not being able to control his appetite and just not thinking ahead. Granted, those are things that can be worked out and sanded over as he learns and grows. Sanji with his penchant for just fawning over pretty ladies. Zoro of just not thinking more in just terms of swordsmanship, and Usopp of just being his cowardice kind of levels were kind of toned down here to the point where, like, mild annoyances. I am interested to see how his stuff kind of goes on. Nami kind of got screwed over in that she was sick for most of the part, but not really. She's like, okay, we just do this, we gotta help Vivi, and then she learns Chopper stuff, wants to help him, and the rest as well, as we then set off for Vivi's whole thing with Alabasta Kingdom, and that one is like 38 episodes. It's like, sweet good God, they need... I have seen through Netflix that it kind of normalizes out, so there won't be like such big chunks of time that it's like because of how big of certain seasons are. But like this one was a perfect kind of length. It understood the story that it was telling of introducing Chopper and getting him into the Straw Hats, and it fucking worked there. I loved going through this story, understanding these characters and seeing them in the Grand Line and what these kind of adventures, like what kind of pirate adventures can occur within the Grand Line. And I think that this is a nice kind of understanding of that, which then we start going to Alabasta Kingdom, and I do like that we have the dichotomy of this island drum being like snow and what kind of occurs in Alabasta as we get another kind of climate and everything involved there and everything kind of going on. So we'll see how that kind of goes and what kind of happens there. But this one, I definitely would recommend it. One Piece definitely is a time kind of commitment. I get that. I'll catch up as I can, and hopefully one day I'll be caught up enough that I'll be at a current kind of season. But we'll kind of see. I do love the world, the characters, the setting. There hasn't been anything that truly has turned me off. And it usually falls into the usual kind of trouble stuff that goes on with kind of shonen that you see in like Naruto and Dragon Ball and Bleach with certain kind of filler things going on, which I am accustomed to, and as long as they aren't completely egregious and are completely like, this was a complete waste of time, I've got no true kind of problem with it. So this one I would definitely recommend just because of how well done they introduce Chopper and do his story justice, in at least my opinion. If you don't like it and think it's complete and utter bullshit, melodramatic kind of faffery, I get that. That's your opinion. That's cool. But I really enjoyed this and liked seeing the different kind of aspects that pirates influence in, like, even a doctor of being like, I'm going to be technically a pirate for disease. And then see Chopper be like, I want to go on the seas. I want to explore. These people need a doctor. I got these medical skills. I want to see what's out there. And I can't wait to see what's out there or with them and see how they kind of work it out and everything. And I would definitely recommend this to pretty much anybody. I mean, it gets nutty and kind of heavy of like, oh God, they hurt this poor little reindeer. And it's like, no, I protect him. He's my buddy and I help him. That's the feeling I got from it. I'm like, Jesus, he did nothing. What the fuck, people? So, I can't wait to see where we're going next with Straw Hats. So those are my opinions on the season. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.